So Hardware 4 hasn't been as good as Hardware 3 for me, but it's kind of pulled off some moves that have kind of impressed me, even just on the way down to pick you up.
Yeah.
It really pulled off some tight moves in a way that kind of surprised me. And this is 11.4.4, so this isn't the latest version that others are using. But
let's say hi to the camera. Hey everybody.
Hey.
Omar just picked me up at the airport. I just showed up to San Francisco, and look at this. What a ride do I get in this beautiful interior white, brand new Model S Hardware 4, running FSD Beta 11.4.4. And oh my gosh, what a beautiful car. I'm a little envious coming from my Model 3, Hardware 3 Model Y. But hey, you get what you pay for. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty nice. I have to say, coming from the Model 3 Performance, it's a huge step up.
Yeah, and this is the long range. You didn't get the Plaid, I think I heard you say.
No,
Right? Yeah.
The long range was already a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But with them dropping the prices, it was like, okay, with FSD transfer compared to waiting, it kind of almost pencils out.
And you just got on the wire on that transfer too. It's like down to the
Oh
day
yeah,
or something.
literally the last day they were doing it. So that was great. I saved $12,000, got to keep my FSD on another car.
Nice, nice.
So we're on FSD now, trying to get out of the airport.
Yeah. So you were just saying that it did some pretty amazing stuff just getting here, but you noticed some differences on 4 and 3. I don't even know how I would begin to quantify differences other than the camera's the only difference there is, right? Well, I guess we have a better computer. We have more processing speed. We have more RAM.
And this one supposedly has the Phoenix radar too. I don't know if they're still putting that in or they took that out. But Isaacson mentioned too that they put it in the S and X only to start.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's being used or if that has any impact. They haven't really been clear, but it does have that.
I did that radar test, if you remember, way back when. You could put tinfoil on the front. If the car freaks out, it's using the radar.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Maybe we should try that on this car.
Yeah, I mean, depending on, I'm just assuming they put it on that somewhere in the front fascia, but yeah, that would be interesting to see. Because on the Hardware 4 Ys, right, the plugs were empty, it looked like, so they didn't even put the adapter on there. So obviously just the S and X, like Walter said.
Yeah, it's interesting. They said in the book they were experimenting with it, so I wonder how that experiment's going.
You know, in reading the book, experimenting with it was a way of saying Elon didn't want it, some people said they did, and somebody said, hey, let's try it on this and let's see how it goes. And that's how it's determined, right? I mean, there were definitely some interesting internal discussions that sound like Drew had and some of the others had with the with leaders on just direction.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have some of this debate externally, but it's funny to hear about them having it internally as well. Some of the team members going like, is this crazy, or can this really work? Even with the end-to-end, they said a lot of people didn't believe it could work at first.
Yeah, but I appreciate them leaving the room with the decision and supporting it externally. That's important from any company's perspective. You know, you can't have people undermining you or trying to say this isn't going to work and whatever. You know, have the debate, but then
it's important for them to voice their opinion. But yeah, I think they're doing pretty good. They've made the Pure Vision work amazingly well on Hardware 3. And so, I mean, how does this feel for you compared to Florida driving on the highway? Does it feel about normal?
Highway feels about the same. I mean, the markings are good. You know, I have no problem with the way I drive.
That's what people say who come from out of California. They go, your road markings are so good.
The road markings are good. The space is good. There's nothing tight. You know, what mode do you keep it in? Are you in aggressive? You said you use aggressive,
Yeah,
right?
I usually use assertive. Let me see. Assertive. Yeah, assertive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my experience when on assertive is it camps out in this lane. It does not get back over at all.
In California, that's not as much of a faux pas.
Yeah.
People don't really follow that. I mean, maybe on like, I mean, it's different in other states, I think. This is the thing. There's so many regional differences and cultural differences in driving. It's really pretty complex.
Yeah.
But here, you know, people just kind of drive wherever.
But you've also rolled the speed up to kind of keep flow with this lane too, right?
Yeah, well, I've set it to go 15% over.
15, so you use the override.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use a 10% override when I'm in my personal profile. I have a 0% override when I'm making videos, just so folks can kind of see what the car wants to do on its own.
Yeah.
But in some situations, I have to scroll it up because it'll slow to just an unsafe speed on the highway at times. And
that's actually why I set it where I did, because sometimes it reads those speed limit signs and goes down.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have it go a little over, and I can always adjust it down if I feel like it's too fast.
Yeah. And that goes into the way we've learned how to use it and how it is an amazing assistance system. And sometimes we get so good at using it this way, we're like, oh my God, it's amazing. And it's because we've learned how to make it work in our environment, right? That's why I think NHTSA's going to have to find some common ground with Tesla to say safety is the priority no matter what the local regulations are.
Yeah. I think they see some of the potential, but you know, they're just also seeing you know, some of the issues, like with emergency vehicles, with people not paying attention, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's kind of like you're an airplane pilot in a way.
Yeah.
To get the most out of it, you have to be a co-pilot. Like just today, I was picking you up, and I saw this construction area. Same construction area yesterday, I had to take over because it got a little stuck. It didn't know how to proceed forward.
Yeah.
Today was a little bit different. The construction site was a little bit different. They'd made some progress, and it was able to get through. But I took my hand. I was ready to take over.
Yeah.
And then it actually made it through. But as a pilot, you have to kind of anticipate, okay, this could go wrong. This is something that looks a little challenging for it. When am I going to turn it on? When am I going to turn it off?
We say as a pilot, we say you got to stay ahead of the aircraft.
Exactly.
You got to be out there.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that can mean something to a different pilot. A Cessna 172 pilot, you know, is 60 miles an hour ahead of the aircraft. A Super Hornet pilot is 250 knots ahead of the aircraft. A helicopter pilot might be 45 knots ahead of the aircraft.
Right.
It's different, but it's about your closure speed, which is the same thing in driving in the city and the highway. And
look at the Waymo.
Oh yeah.
Doing some testing on the highway.
Is he testing, or could you have a customer?
Oh look, driverless. Oh no, it was a driver.
There was a driver in there.
Yeah, he was like almost napping.
How did you know he was testing? Do they not take customers here?
Well, they don't take customers on the highway.
On the highway, okay.
But it looks like they are beginning to test to eventually offer that type of service. The LiDAR, obviously, with its distance, it's a little bit different on the highway where you have much larger distances compared to the city.
Yeah.
So there is some more tuning needed there. But right now, Waymo is open within San Francisco city limits.
Yeah.
It's a pretty impressive coverage area now, actually.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's interesting. So the autonomy is in the city, not on the highway.
Right.
And many of us would think that Tesla's system is ready for the highway, but not quite the city. Perhaps in some situations for completely driverless.
Yeah, it is kind of ironic. But, you know, they're kind of overlapping. Like, I actually have started to use Waymo instead of Uber. You know, just last night I ordered some food, but I ordered it to my old apartment. And so it's just a couple blocks away. So I said, okay, I have to go get it. And I called an Uber. Uber couldn't get me a car. I called Waymo. Waymo sent a car within 10 minutes.
Wow.
And they let me do a round trip, so go and come back without having to call a new car.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I use Waymo now instead of Uber a lot, whenever I can.
Is the price about the same?
It's about the same, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, then I use FSD when I'm in my car for the highway situations, the places that the driverless cars can't take me. So they're really kind of complementary now, I think.
My 20-minute Uber at 5 a.m. in New York this morning was $55.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
My, 30-minute Uber ride
but normal for New York.
last night was 61.
Yeah.
So, and, I was curious. I was just watching it while you were talking there. Why is there's another Waymo up front. Why is it wanting to get in the right lane? Is it giving the getting in the lane for the route thing it's been doing for me?
Yeah, it has to take the 280 north, which is on the right side here.
Oh, so it was navigating. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a situation that I've noticed that it thinks it needs to get over for a route that is like not even applicable.
Right. I think that's another safety driver there.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the other advantages California has is our map data is better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because Tesla's here, they have some better collection for California or what, but it just does seem to be more accurate. I hear people on Twitter complaining about map issues in other parts of the country way more. But here, you know, it pretty much knows where to go.
Well, there's no doubt that they can go in and fix specific issues when identified.
Yeah.
And obviously they've done that for some situations that were high visibility. You could even argue that just working on my turn is an extreme example of going in and working on an issue. I had one little suicide lane intersection I was documenting on earlier versions of 11.4.4, and I know it was map data because it kept wanting to go into the middle lane when it should have jumped over into the other lane. And on this version, even though the map data still looks like it's wrong, it's not doing it anymore.
Oh, wow.
So they addressed that in this .2
Yeah,
release.
somehow, yeah.
So that's like an N of 3 experiment. I haven't done it.
I remember Green was saying there's some hints it can download now when you punch in a destination from the server.
Some like localized, like heat map sort of stuff, or some
some like map fixes or things like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works.
Yeah,
but that could help. So you've never been in a driverless car before?
No, this will be my first time if we get one.
That's great.
I have not.
I think it's, you know, my first driverless car ride was in, I think, 2018 or maybe 2020 when Waymo opened in Arizona. I forget when exactly it was, but it's once you see it and you realize, you know, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
It definitely, I think, changes, at least for me, it changed how I felt about what was possible.
Well, I would even argue, I completely agree with that paradigm, and I would even argue that driving FSD like we drive FSD, I can now see it in a better way, even though I think there are some limitations on the current way we are with certain cars. There's no doubt that the road is there.
Right.
How we choose to navigate it, or what company, you know, tries what strategy to get there, I don't know. But it's totally achievable within the realm of technical feasibility. What I continue to not really know, just like Tesla has with insurance, is where the regulatory nature is going to allow you to do it and when. Right, so you know, Tesla insurance still isn't in Florida. Well, why? The only thing we can think of is they just haven't gotten their policies approved by the state yet. But some city or some state will approve it first, and then it'll grow and blossom from there. And then the economics will take over as soon as it becomes a viable product that people can see. I do think that there's a couple stories I remember the first time I told someone to take an Uber. Matter of fact, he's a coworker, and he said, "What's an Uber? I mean, I'm not going to get in somebody else's car." But somehow we've gotten used to staying in someone else's house and driving in someone else's car, and we don't think twice about it. I do think getting in a driverless will be another one of those paradigms.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just like, oh yeah, you know, I'm glad there's not a driver. I don't have to talk to him, or you know, all the other things that come with a driver being there. You know, there are some people that have told me as flying passengers, they don't know that there'll ever be a day they get into a plane without a pilot or without two pilots.
That I can understand.
But that's another paradigm, and my argument to that is, well, we're not going to start off with pilotless A380s that have, you know, 500 passengers on board.
Right, maybe a little drone type thing.
With a Joby type of eVTOL that's got 8 people in it, and next thing you know, you've only got to find 8 people that want to get into a plane to make money, right? Not 300. But then, and I also argue that the people that will get into that Joby or that eVTOL, whatever brand gets there first, will have probably gotten to that level of comfort because of driverless cars.
Oh yeah,
know?
True.
So it's an evolution and a train of a paradigm shift that will eventually get there, I think. So
yeah, people, I mean, things change when people experience things, when they see it safe. And I think really when you talk about the regulatory aspect too, I think they'll be on board with the technology. I mean, even here, there have been some high-profile incidents lately.
Yeah.
Someone got stuck under a cruise, other accidents, and they've let them continue. You know, the regulators are kind of like, okay, there may be some early hiccups, but we understand the potential here. It's to just eliminate crashes altogether.
Yeah. It's got to happen. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but obviously it's happening today. Just how far it's going to grow. Do we hit a hiccup? Is there a administration that comes in the future that makes it a whole lot easier? Or
it seems like we do need some federal legislation. Right now, the framework's very haphazard.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows. It's kind of left up to the states, and different states have their own systems. One national standard to get licensed would be ideal, I think.
Yeah. Well,
because if we knew the process, then it's like, okay, here's the process. But it's a little bit of an unknown.
You navigate it, right? I mean, all Tesla's doing is accumulating miles and trying to just leverage safety metrics and working on the software to get it to that level of safety, which having the miles is a huge.
So here we are in San Francisco. There's, bikes, pedestrians.
Yeah.
Is this, is this the same as Florida?
So we don't have bike lanes like this that give you a little extra distance from the cars. The suicide lane, very similar, right? I would say this is not unlike Florida. I wouldn't say, oh my God, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Lights are positioned well. We don't quite have, well, I'm sure in downtown Jacksonville we have lights on the corners like that. Orlando would be the same. Yeah, I don't think that this is physically different. I would even argue in some situations the density here provides more VRU challenges that it has to overcome.
It does also make it less stressful because it's slower.
Yeah.
So, you just have more time to react to anything. All right, so now we have to make a left. We don't have an arrow, so we got to wait until it's clear.
Unprotected here, and this is 11.4.4, so mine would have started pre-rolling that probably. At least I would have felt it. It knew it had all these lanes. Yeah, that was good. For me, I completely trust forward-facing unprotected lefts, except for with very high speed oncoming traffic that is going much faster than the speed limit. So the occasional guy on the motorcycle that's out there for his joyride scares me a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think the car can see that in respect to the other cars, or it doesn't assume it at the time it would need to. And with my unprotected left, it's the same sort of thing. If everybody was going the speed limit, I honestly think they kind of got that licked. It's the occasional interloper that's going too fast. And on 4.7.2, and all the .4s have changed the creeping behavior a little bit, I sense some latency that feels like indecision, but that's anthropomorphizing it too.
The indecision's the worst, yeah.
But it starts to creep, and then it sees something, or it sees something that creeps, and then I'm like, is that latency, or is it visual range?
It's weird. Hardware 4 seems to be better at that.
Yeah.
It seems to be more decisive. It tends to be able to make those judgment calls better. Like, it's weird, because it has more takeovers than Hardware 3, but I've seen little buds of its potential that are like, oh wow, that was really something I haven't seen with Hardware 3.
Do you think it could be because of a higher resolution equating to longer range?
Yeah, I mean, I think higher resolution can't hurt. There's, obviously trade-offs in processing and that sort of thing, but they've got a more powerful computer.
Yeah.
Whatever they did, I think it's working. And I don't know what the red glow is, whether they have some type of coating on the camera or something.
That's gotta
the
be
low light
filtered.
performance seems to be much better.
Yeah. Your blinker repeater cameras looked very similar to the brightness level of the improved resolution of my Hardware 3 that they just made on this last build. They improved the look of those a lot.
Yeah, I think, they've really made it so that I think someone who was not a hardcore Tesla nerd could not tell the difference between a Hardware 3 and Hardware 4 car today.
Yeah.
Like, FSD will work on both, the cameras will work on both, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to see a difference today. I think eventually Hardware 4 will exceed it, but they've really made it pretty invisible.
So that comment Elon and Ashok made in the car that kind of scared us all about Hardware 4,
I know,
6 months behind, I guess what we've learned is that wasn't about version 11. Maybe that was around version 12, so maybe version 12 will be 6 months behind, or maybe that was completely just I don't know.
We'll see. I'm not sure what he meant, but maybe he was just sandbagging a little bit because, I mean, maybe he just wanted to set our expectations low. Yeah. And now it's kind of like, okay, I'm pleasantly surprised. All right, so this looks like a challenge up ahead. We got a semi truck just kind of sticking its butt out.
Oh yeah, he's got his hazards on. The car in front of us has already got his blinker on. Your car doesn't have his blinker on yet.
Oh,
what was that little left dip?
I don't know. That's strange.
It should.
Okay.
Is it going to use its blinker to go around? Does it map out a path? I can't see. No, it's not.
I think it's gonna wait.
I just can't see. Is it trying to map a path around him on your screen?
No, I think it's gonna wait until the traffic passes.
I can see. I have ultrasonics. I can see your vision distance on the cars that are going around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would have given the same challenge to my car, but I feel like right now I would have had this trajectory kind of continually being mapped to try to figure out how to get around it. Yours is going straight through it. And you put the blinker on just to tease it.
I think there's just so many cars coming, it doesn't want to do it.
I am starting to see a path go around though occasionally.
Let's see.
Yep, it's got it.
There we go. Come on, baby.
Mapped. It's got it mapped.
There's just so many cars coming, it doesn't want to do it.
Are you tapping the accelerator just to kind of goose it to see if it'll go?
I think you can do it, but it just wants it to be clear. Okay,
Completely clear.
Go. There we go.
So the courage pedal kind of made it do it. Yeah.
I think it got a little close. What it should have done is stay a little back.
Yeah.
And give itself more room to get around.
Yeah. When I force mine to try a U-turn, it's very similar to that same sort of behavior. It sits there and goes, I don't know. But if I just say, well, let's see what I do if I give it the encouragement. And it'll try it, and sometimes if the road is wide enough, it'll get it. But that also implies there's a lot more under the hood that it can do that it's just not willing to do because of however it's determining. I think
11472 had started getting a lot better about not getting stuck behind things.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a big thing in the city. People just stop in totally unpredictable ways. Like, that's not a situation you see every day, but people are stopped all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So it's really kind of challenging to figure out how to get around all of that sometimes.
Yeah, the lights being on, it had hazards. I think it had everything it needed to know it was not going to go anywhere. But a bus can be that way too, right? Just stopped and not going anywhere because it's unloading and loading maybe somebody that needs a little bit more time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 11472 could have handled that better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about V12 at this point, I feel like. Nobody really cares about 11 anymore.
Do you have one car right now, just this one?
Yeah, just this one.
And okay, so you're only on 4.4 because you opted in, and you haven't gotten this VIN on the.
They did send me the little button, but they haven't sent me an early access build yet.
You're on the snapshot, okay. And you posted something about being frustrated about some disengagements or something. Is that this car or is that a different car?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten a little better lately, actually. But
like you were locked out or something. Was that this car?
Oh, that was actually my dad's car.
Your dad's car. Okay, I was like, because I thought the policy on that was a week, and I was like, well, it hadn't been a week, so.
Yeah, he's like, what? He's like, what the hell? You got me suspended?
Yeah.
But I think he got most of those strikes. But, I was just trying to order some food. I had to drive an hour in LA. We're trying to order some food for delivery, and I was using my phone.
Yeah.
And so then it kicked me out, and I didn't realize there were already 3 strikes.
It busted you.
And then I had to drive manually for an hour in LA traffic. It was like, oh my God, I should not have done that.
Oh, and on that car, it was only 3 strikes, because my car gets 5 strikes.
Right.
Because of the different version, I guess.
Yeah.
Interesting. I got a few strikes early on when they turned this camera on and with the ball cap and the glasses, but it was pretty buggy at that time either. But
now it's gotten really good.
I've gotten pretty good where I know those boundaries, and I know not to pick up the phone, and I know not to, watch the animals on the side of the road, if it's driving, because it wants you to look ahead and things like that.
I think this hotel actually has a Tesla charger, which is good.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So we're going to a downtown Marriott Union Square, and looks like we got some traffic here on this next. If that indicates
on Sutter
too. Yeah.
So this will be probably the biggest challenge for it. Now we're really in, the heart of San Francisco.
Yeah. This is cool.
But it's taken us all the way from the airport to here.
I would say my car can, I wouldn't say this is drastically different. I'm not saying...
This is what I try to tell people. People have really run away with the idea that it's overfit to California. But, you know, I've driven from California to Florida. It performs the same. Obviously, California has more Teslas, but there's no... it suddenly gets worse when you cross the border to Arizona.
Yeah. For me, and I've used this, bell curve analogy before. It's like, getting into the highway or onto the main road and getting out of the main road into wherever you park. Those two ends of the journey. The
last mile, yeah.
That's
the challenge.
100 yards, really, is kind of where I can almost count on something happening every single time.
Right.
But once I get onto a main road and just have to deal with stoplights and turn signals and pedestrians, that's the good end of the bell curve where it's very reliable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously it can get into some situations like we just did with that truck.
Right. But in a situation like that, I would have just taken over and gone around. It was only really for the sake of the video that I kept it on.
Or sometimes I would have used an intentional blinker earlier to give it the hint to not get itself into trouble.
That's another thing you can do, yeah.
Yeah, and I do that on the
highway. And that's
all
like being a pilot, Some people are kind of like, the point isn't for you to not do anything. The point is actually give it all the feedback you want.
Yeah.
Try and get it to do the right thing.
Yeah. I do that a lot on the highway too, when I can see pinches or merges or perhaps big trucks that I'm like, I can see this Mustang coming up from behind me and he's really... So sometimes I'll just turn the blinker on to kind of force the lane change behavior I want. And then, but once I do that
and then hopefully they can pick up on that.
Yeah, and then, but it'll kind of re-navigate. But the stress you get in traffic situations that we've all experienced that startle you or surprise you, where you feel the adrenaline run through your leg or your arms because you got scared for a second or startled because something caught you by surprise, that sort of goes away in letting the Tesla drive.
Oh yeah.
Completely for me.
Totally.
So we can just park wherever you want if we're going to drive away.
So it looks like we're here.
Yeah, here we go.
So we made it. So,
awesome, nice job. That was so good.
Dan O'Dowd says that I'm faking my videos and doing it tons of times until I get one that works. How many times did we do that? 10 times?
Nope. First ride. Got in the car. We had a little trouble around the truck, but that was completely expected. And honestly, that was a good one to actually show. I would say, you did have the speed rolled up kind of on the highway, which I think is just good to know that it was with the flow of traffic. Whereas sometimes, when I'm making videos, I'm going too slow, but you saw that with the override.